Welcome everyone to our virtual April Sew Fun presentation. Quality Sewing and Vacuum is located in the Pacific Northwest with 11 locations, and we're filming in our Tukwila location. We'd love to know where you're watching from, so please feel free to comment. We miss seeing all of you at our face-to-face presentations. We do plan to continue offering a filmed version of Sew Fun once we do return to seeing you in stores. Today we will have 6 door prizes total. 3 people are going to be randomly selected during the Facebook Live. If you comment, share, or like, then you'll get your name in for that, and we'll announce those winners today. If you are one of the lucky winners, please send us a message on Facebook with your phone number and which store you'd like to pick your prize up at. The other 3 door prizes will be randomly selected from those of you that post a show and tell picture of one of your creations. You can post a picture in the comments section once this live presentation is complete. You will have until next Tuesday, April 6th at noon Pacific Standard Time. Winners will be notified on Facebook with a private message. We will post a link throughout this presentation where you can find all the products we will be sharing with you. And my name is Jenny Swenson. I am a South End consultant for Quality Sewing and Vacuum. Today we are going to talk about several different things, but I'd like to start out ahead of time and tell you some of the things that we're not going to be demoing, because otherwise we forget them, and that's not such a good thing. So I have, it's called a machine cleaning brush, and it is a very long handled brush, which is great for if you have a long arm machine, and it's nice and sturdy so it doesn't bend when you clean out your area of your bobbin case. So that is the machine cleaning brush. We have the lighted picker upper, and I have used this several times since Lori sent it to me. It extends to 28 inches, but the best thing is that it has a light on the, oh yes, I had it on. It's burnt out, but it does have a light on it. It has a replaceable battery, but I have used it, and that's why it was left on, because in my sewing room I have several nooks and crannies that I always tend to drop bobbins, and so they're metal bobbins, and I can go down and grab them and pick them up. So you might want to get one of these for your significant other, because they would be great whatever you're doing if you're working with metal in the garage for lights too. And now Lana will talk about a few things. There's one. Oh, there's a light one. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lena Jones. I'm one of the North End consultants. I'm going to just repeat what you said. I'm one of the North End consultants. And the couple products that I'd like to talk to you about to start with. The first one is a little 2.5-inch ruler. This is such a cool ruler for a couple reasons. Number one, it says, I love my quilting friends. I know some of you have not been able to get together with your friends over the last year. This would be a great gift just to send them and say, hey, I miss you. It's perfect at 2.5 inches. The features that I like about it is on the back, there's little red hearts that have the non-skid stuff on it, so it's not going to slide when you're doing your cutting or your drawing with it. It also has a 1/4 inch mark right down the side here, so you know where a perfect 1/4 inch is, all the way down the side. It has a 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch markings on this side and 1/8 inch markings over here. So this is like a perfect little ruler to say, hey, I miss you, or just a perfect little ruler to gift to yourself. The other product I want to talk about is the 14-inch and the 18-inch design boards. I was totally impressed with these. We all know about the big old design wall. We can put lots of quilt pieces up on there and arrange them all and take a look at them. But some of us don't have the room for a huge quilt wall. So these boards come in very handy. And this is not a felt board. I don't know what it's made out of, but stuff sticks to it really well. So I'm not going to put a block up here because you know you can do that. But what I want to show you is when you put fabric on here, it sticks really well. Okay, it's going to stay on, whoops, except for the big long one, it's going to stay on there really well. And after you get all your blocks on here, and you have to maybe clean your dining room table for dinner or something, you can just stack these over on the side. You can also take all your pieces with you to the sewing machine, and they're already arranged. You can just pull them off right away and sew with them. But the one thing I like to do, and some of you know, I don't always do normal. And one of the things I like to do is I like to create something and see what it looks like before I actually sew it. So I might want to take and ruffle my fabric a little bit and see if that's going to look good on my project. And that's going to stay on there. Obviously, I can't flip it over. That will fall off. But I can see if that's going to work on my project. And that's just fluted across the edge there. So this becomes an amazing design board that I can just about do anything with. So I love the 18-inch side because it gives me lots of room to play. And we're now going to do the Serger book, and Jenny will start us off.
So this book is Serger 101 by Katrina Walker, and Katrina is a Pacific Northwest, I call her a celebrity. And she lives on a sheep farm, and she has a wonderful studio, and she worked with Quality Sewing and Vacuum as a sew fun consultant several years ago, and I was lucky enough to work with her, and she's just so talented and creative and kind. But this book is based on her experiences with sergers, and she's been using sergers since she was a teenager. And it has many topics. It starts out with basics. So if you need to learn how to thread your serger or you can't remember how to do it, you can go right to the basics. It has skill building. It has specialty stitches. It has cover stitch, knit construction techniques, and woven construction techniques. And then there's specialty tools. One of my favorite parts about this book is if you aren't sure which stitches, I've often had people ask me, what stitches should I use if I'm sewing such and such? She has a chart that goes through for stretch and knit fabrics, and on the next page it is on woven fabrics. So you have a lot of information there if you have questions, and we're going to talk about some of the projects that we made. The first one is, this is called the, what is this called? A Beautiful Shrug. And I had this fabric, and it was only a yard of burnout velvet, and it's very hard to find something to make out of just 1 yard of really nice fabric, and sometimes that's all that's left on the bolt. So in order to serge this is in the specialty projects, I had to, I did use, it's called Perfect Sew, and I put my fabric down on a plastic bag, and I spread it with a sponge brush, Perfect Sew, so that I could do a rolled hem on the edges, and it worked really well. And then you seam it together with a narrow 3 thread at the shoulder, and then you serge the edges. And I'll put it on, it's not going to look great over my top, but I can see me wearing this with a sleeveless outfit because my arms always get cold. You could wear it this way, or you can turn it around and put the V in front, whichever way you're comfortable wearing it. Okay, you can make it longer in the back, shorter in the front. So it's very versatile. Okay. The next project I made from the book is the yoga mat, and this is made out of a heavy batik, and I love batik fabrics, and when I bought this, I guess I didn't realize how heavy it is because it's much heavier than a quilter's cotton. So I use it for utilitarian things, which is wonderful for this bag. The patterns for this book are all in the back. However, once you purchase the book, you can go to a link and you will get a downloadable pattern that you can just download from the web. So in order to make the ties, she usually has you serge a long tail and then pull. I should have made a sample of that. pull. But I didn't do that for this because the fabric was too heavy. It would not pull through. So I had to use a tube turner in order to do that. But it's a nice sturdy fabric and it fits over your shoulder really nicely. The other way. And it works like a charm. Okay, the last thing I made from the book is the flat locked table runner. And in the instructions, she has you make, I think 3. I decided to make just 1. And this is a fun, simple, easy table runner to make because you use a flat lock on the serger. And I used a quilting cotton thread on the table runner, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. You can put pearl crown rayon in the upper looper and you will get more of a dense look, and you serge it and then you straighten it out, and on the back you get the ladder stitch. So here is the pearl cotton. And on this one, you can see that it's a variegated cotton thread, and it goes together very quickly, and you just straighten everything out and you're done. And now Lana.
Okay, I loved Katrina's book. It had some really great tips, a lot of good ideas, and some great patterns. And I fell in love with her marvelous market tote. And I went through my stash and I found this great fabric, and it wasn't quite enough, so my bag's a little bit smaller than it should be, but I wanted to use this fabric, and I have duck cloth down below. What I loved about it, first of all, is it went together super easy, and the inside was fabulous, because what she has you do is she has you make a facing. You line it, and then you make a facing to finish it off. And then you also are putting in a pocket along the edge of the facing, and you're adding a carabiner. Okay, so this was just a fabulous bag, totally lined. And I did put a piece of foam core board at the bottom so that it would stand straight. But it went so easy. I loved it so much, I made another one. And I had digitized this design, and I was going to go, oh, you know, I want to put this on a tote bag. Well, I wonder what tote bag I should put it on. And I'm looking all around my patterns, what tote bag to put it on. I went, duh, why don't I put it on the tote bag that we're making for It's So Fun? So I made this one, and I digitized that design. It's called the Moon and Coffee, and it's stitched out in King Star metallic silver thread. And this is marine vinyl that I stitched it on. And the King Star thread stitched beautifully on the marine vinyl. Okay. Now, one thing about marine vinyl is it does not need to be done with a serger, although I did want to test my serger and see how many layers of marine vinyl I could put in there. 2 was the max. When I did 3, it went, yeah, no, I don't like this. But also I tried to cover him, and my serger's older, so there's not quite enough room to roll up and stick this through, so it didn't like it. So most of this bag was done with a sewing machine, but I still did all the things that she said in her book on how to create it. Now, you can't press marine vinyl. So what I did is, after I sewed my seams together, I used the Clover little roller thingy. I forget what this is called. Seam roller, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it looks like this. And I rolled the seam flat because I couldn't press them. And that worked out just great for my little project here. And I loved how that turned out. Now, I also did, with the rolled hem, I did this lettuce lover scarf is what she calls it. And this is a little heavier knit, and I just love how this turned out. And what you're going to do with your serger is it has settings for the feed dogs. And when you push the lever up, it makes the feed dogs move faster and pulls the fabric together. So if you are sewing a seam, you don't want a lettuce edge to your seam. You would push the lever up to the higher number, so it would the feed dogs would move faster and pull in your fabric, so you have a nice flat seam. Well, in this case, I want a lettuce edge. I want it to be curly like this. So I'm going to push it down to the bottom so it actually stretches the fabric out. And then as I'm serging, I'm going to pull just a little bit. Not a ton. I'm not going to stretch it really hard. I'm just going to pull just a little bit so that I get even a better lettuce. And at the bottom, she cut hers straight off, but I was going to put beads on the bottom of mine. And that just didn't work out well. So I rounded the edge and then I just serged around the edge, and that worked out gorgeous. And I just love how that the scarf turned out.
Lana, there was a question. Where do you buy marine vinyl?
The question was, where do you buy marine vinyl? And I have a couple places. I've gotten it at Joann's, and I've also gotten it from oh, now I can't remember. I shouldn't have said. I got it some other place online. I want to say it was fabric.com that I got it at. And but you can just Google it and you'll find lots of places that have it. But Joann's has carried it. I don't know if they had it the last time I went in there. I think they did. But so Joann's and then probably fabric.com. Okay, I also use the rolled hem on my napkins. Now, I'm going to do a demo on how I do the napkins because not a lot of people know how to turn a corner. And I don't serge off and trim. Okay, I turn the corner. I turn all 4 corners. So the instructions I'm going to give you on a demo in just a moment are going to be totally lanatized. This is how I do it. There's lots of ways to do it. I went online to look to see if there was a good video to refer you to. And quite honestly, I could not find one. I found some that showed you to turn a corner, but the whole time they had their hand in the way and they never showed the finished corner. And so it was very difficult to see. And a couple of them were okay. You probably could get the idea. But I couldn't find one that says, yes, they have a great video on that. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. Okay, so I'm on the Baby Lock Triumph, and there's a couple things on the serger I want you to be aware of. Number one, on the foot, and this is a foot off my FOF, and the Baby Lock will have the same thing. You have these little fingers here that stick out from the foot, and those tell you where your needle is going to hit. So those are important. You have to know, you have to watch these fingers, because where the needle comes down, these fingers are pointing to that spot, and you need to know that spot. So these are important little fingers. On the serger, there's also fingers on the throat plate. And these fingers right here, the one on the right, is where the stitch is going to be formed. Okay, our rolled hem will be formed on that. Now, I'm set up for a 3-thread rolled hem on this serger. At home, I had my serger set up for a 2-thread rolled hem. If you do a 3-thread, your pretty thread, like let's say I used woolly nylon on the blue sample I just showed you. On a 2-thread, my woolly nylon would be in the lower looper. If I'm doing a 3-thread rolled hem, my pretty thread, like my woolly nylon, would be in my upper looper. So you have to make sure you put it in the right looper. Not all machines can do a 2-thread. Most can, okay? But it's your choice. It doesn't matter. Either one will work. So I have this machine set up for a rolled hem. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen the stitch length a little bit, and I'm going to start at the corner here. Notice I'm not lifting up the whole foot. I'm just lifting up the toe. Okay, and I'm going to serge for about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. I want the first 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch a little bit loose. Okay, because I'm going to come around and stitch over that again, and I don't want the heavy stitching on top of heavy stitching. So now I'm going to go back down to the length I want, and I'm going to serge to the other end. And I'm going to serge to the last thread of the fabric. Okay, right there. Now, to turn a corner, what you're going to do is you're going to lift up the foot. You're going to pull right here or wherever you can get your thread and give a little bit of tension release. If you don't do that, when you pull your fabric away, it will pull the thread in and destroy your rolled hem. So you're going to pull on that just a little bit, and it's now stuck on the stitch fingers of the throat plate. I can't pull it off this way. I have to pull it straight back and let it release off the stitch fingers. Not quite yet. There we go. And then turn it around. Now you can get flying loops on the back when you do that because you just pulled on the thread. So what you'll want to do is grab your threads and just pull them back up again so that you don't get those flying loops. It doesn't guarantee it, but it helps prevent that from happening. Now when I set my foot down again, I'm going to make sure I'm butted up against the blade. I don't care where the foot is yet. I'm going to lift the toe up, and now I'm going to adjust. Because when the foot is up in the air, I cannot see if I'm in the right spot. I'm not going to even try. I'm going to set this down and then adjust where my fingers are pointing, so the fingers point right at the edge of the rolled hem. And then if you want to make sure, you can always do roll your needle down to make sure you're in the right spot. And now I'm going to go to the other end. Now, one of the things I have done, I don't know if you can see this, but you see there's a little piece of fabric sticking out there from my corner. A lot of times I will go through, if I'm getting that, and I will go through and just clip off a little bit of the corner so that doesn't happen. Okay, so you can do that if you like. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to go to the end. Okay, make sure my needle is up, foot up, tension release, get it off the stitch finger, bring it around, set the foot down, pull up my threads first, set my foot down, adjust so I'm sticking right into the rolled hem, and then go in the other direction. Okay, so now I'm going to stop this right here, and I'm going to finish off this corner. Okay, you've already seen it twice. I don't need to do that again. So we'll pretend I went all the way around. Okay, so we're going to...
So is the needle up or down when you turn the corner?
It's up. Because I'll come to the last stitch, and I'm going to turn one more corner here. You come to the last stitch, and then I have to have the needle up so I can pull it off of the stitch fingers and then turn the corner. Okay, so I'm going to pretend I'm coming down this edge here. And as this cuts, it's going to cut that little thread off, and I'm going to come around the corner and do one more stitch there. Now this one is going to be slightly different than the other ones. Okay, my needle is up, foot up, tension release, take it off the stitch finger, roll it around, and pull it back up on my threads. The one thing you have to be careful here is I don't want to butt this up next to the blade for two reasons. Number one, the blade can cut the threads that are already there, but if I butt it up against the blade, it's going to try to roll it again. It's already been rolled once. I don't want to roll it again. These little notches here on the front of my foot tell me where the needle is going to hit. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that that is lined up so that my needle is hitting right in here and it's not going to roll again. Okay, so let me stick my head in the way here. I can take my glasses off so I can see better. All right. So that is lined up with that, and now I can serge, and I'm going to go about 1/2 inch. Okay, when I stop, I'm not going to drive off. Driving lanes don't look good in serging, okay? So I don't drive off. That's one of my pet peeves. That's another lanatized rule. I'm going to lift my foot up, make sure my needle is up, tension release, and I'm just going to gently pull this back away so that when the needle starts going, it doesn't go in the fabric. I don't want to pull it back hard because I'm going to pull in my my stitches. So now I can put my foot down and I can serge away. Now I can put fray check on that little spot, and I have a really nice corner. Oops, I have a really nice corner. Okay. It's a really great way to do your napkins, your tablecloths. Doesn't take very long, and it works really efficiently. I'll let you. A little negotiating here.
Okay, we have our first winner of the day. Jan Avercamp has won some beautiful little note cards from Bee in My Bonnet Company. And it says, just take one stitch at a time. So congratulations, Jan. Yay! Okay. So, Lana.
Okay. We brought in a couple patterns, and I made the pants, and it is called the Ponte pant, or Renee pants, excuse me. Yes, Renee. The only thing I have to say, I love the way they did the waistband, and Jenny will talk about that. The only thing I can say about the pattern is just be careful. There's lots of sizes on here, and you can easily grab the wrong one as you're trying to follow across. Other than that, it went together so easily. I really liked sewing this together. And I have the pants here. I've got them cooked up too high. And I made it out of a stretched velour ribbed fabric. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. I just wish I would have followed across and made the correct size. But it was fun to sew together anyway, and hopefully I can find someone they fit. But they went together beautifully. I used my serger on the whole thing. I did a stretch stitch for the hem at the bottom. And I don't know, I just say, just be careful when you're watching doing the pattern, because all the sizes are in there. You just want to make sure you grab the right one.
Okay, so when I made the Renee pants, I have short legs. I'm an inch shorter than what the model is. So on the instructions, she has given you lines where you would shorten or lengthen. And what I did is I folded this back a 1/4 inch, so it equals a 1/2 inch above the knee and a 1/2 inch below the knee, and then it fit me. So I did make the size X, which is, I guess, equivalent to a 12, and I have them on. So do you want me to go over there? Okay. Okay, so here's the fashion show. Okay. So on this pattern, she has little insets of like a V inset here between your waist, your side seam, and center seam. And then on the back, and the size turned out perfect as far as length goes when I took that inch. So the waistband is done differently than I had ever done a waistband before, and it's a real easy waistband, so I thought I would show you that. Okay, so we're gonna move over here. So where are you going?
I'm actually going to take this out.
Okay.
No, okay.
So I'm going to tell you about the Kai snips. So we brought these in, and they are really easy to use. You can put it through your finger here if you want and have it at your disposal all the time. I tend to just pick it up and use it. When you're doing this waistband, you need to make sure that you are using you're using woven elastic so that when I stretch it, it stays exactly the same width. Okay? And we are going to be zigzagging this elastic onto the wrong side of the fabric. I put a seam there so you can tell it's the wrong side. And I have the zigzag set at a 3.6 width and a 3.5 length. And you sew, let's see. It's talking to me. Okay. So when you sew very close to the edge here. And you just adjust so that you're right. The edge of the fabric is right in line with the edge of the elastic. And don't stretch anything. Just leave it is you set your machine for a straight stitch, and you fold the elastic over like this. So that's the wrong side. From the right side, you are going to stitch in this little well of the seam in order to hold the elastic straight down. And because I'm using a different color thread, you will be able to see this, but if you had black thread, it wouldn't show at all. Okay, and so your waistband is on the inside of the garment, and yet it's finished. Okay. The second pattern from, is this J-Lee? I think it's J-Lee is how you say this. I'll say it's J-Lee. Is for a t-shirt, and I'm wearing the t-shirt. I made a V-neck one because I don't like high necks. I think as I get older, I like a little more air. So these sizes are from size 2 for a girl all the way up to size 22 for women. Okay, so you have several options. You can do a turtleneck, a crew neck, a V-neck, or a V-neck with a tab here. Okay, and this is out of an ITY knit from Billy's Fabrics in Chehalis. My pants are a Ponte knit. Ponte knit doesn't have as much stretch as other knits, so the pants aren't going to stretch as much. And I would think you could even do it out of a woven with stretch if you really wanted to do that. But this, you do need a lot of stretch in the t-shirt. The neckline, she doesn't really have you top stitch this down, but I did top stitch it down just as an edge stitch on there so that it would lay nice and flat. And you do put the neckline in with a sewing machine and not the serger, but everything else is done on the serger. I did do the double needle hem because I didn't want to set up my cover hem. So the double needle hem doesn't show much because it's black thread. Okay. So what that looks like is you have 2 needles on the top, and on the bottom, the bobbin thread goes back and forth between the 2 needles. Okay. And there are stretched double needles.
They would like to see the back of the pattern so that it'll show the sizes that's available.
So it's size 2 for a little girl. Starts there and goes all the way to 22 for women. Mm-hmm. 27 sizes in one pattern. You have to trace it off.
A question was just asked about the size of the napkins I made. And the black ones are 14 inches. That's a luncheon size. The blue ones are 16 inches. That's also a luncheon size. They say, like, if you go online and you Google size of napkins, usually a 20 to 22 is for dinner. That's huge. I like 16 inches, whether it's dinner or lunch. So around 16 inches for the bigger ones here, and 14 inches. And I cut them 14 and a half and 16 and a half because a 1/4 inch will roll on each side. Okay.
Okay. The next book we're going to talk about is Ruler Work Quilting by Amanda Murphy. I saw an interview with her, and when she wrote this book, she meant it to be like you were taking a class from her, which is really a nice way of writing a book. So there are a lot of photos and a lot of information in here. Not a lot of projects, but it's because you would follow along with her and do the step-by-steps. Okay? She recommends that you start with a straight ruler, straight line ruler, a circle ruler are the 2 that she recommends. So we did bring in, these are the long arm rulers. Anything with the turquoise aqua label has long arm on it. And the circle ruler, what's nice about this is there are 5 different ones within this package. So they range in size from 7 inches completed all the way down to 3 inches completed. If you want to use a domestic machine, she's proficient in both the domestic and in the long arm. So the domestic rulers, we have them in the same sets. They are in the green is the domestic machine, low shank, okay? And let me see what I wanted to tell you. She does have a Facebook group that you can sign on to. If you do that, you're going to have to answer the question so that she knows you're not a robot. And she has on Thursdays, the first and third Thursday of the month, it's called Thankful Thursdays, and she does demos online step by step for you so you can see her use the machine. She is a Bernina ambassador, so she uses the Bernina machines, both long arm, sit down, and domestic. So the rulers are wonderful because they have a non-slip backing. They also have lines in both black and white so that you can see on no matter what color fabric you're going to be using. So the first So I did download the tutorial online from her Bernina, from the Bernina website, and it is weallsew.com, and it is the step-by-step instructions for ruler work. And all you need to do this is that straight ruler and the circle ruler. And she gives you, if you download it, you have a little booklet. She has a video to show you how to do it, and you can follow along with her, and it's very nice to do. One thing that's nice about this is if you do it, you can do it over again with a different color thread. It's just a learning process. It's not something you're going to save and frame. It's just to get you comfortable with the rulers and how you use them. So that is the ruler work sampler from Bernina, okay, and Amanda Murphy. So I think we're moving over to the, we're moving over to the sewing machine. So I'm going to demo first on the sewing machine, and when you're doing ruler work, you need a large platform so that your ruler stays flat. I use machiners gloves because I have arthritis in my wrist and hands, and it does seem to support them a little bit better. I have a Teflon glide sheet here by So Steady that is wonderful, and I have a simple sandwich of fabric and muslin. Oh, actually it's 2 different fabrics. So these are the rulers. So here is the Good Measure circle ruler. With a domestic machine, you can go on the inside here, and that will give you a 1 1/2 inch circle. If you go outside of it, it will have a 5-inch circle. And I'm going to I'm behind the times here. So when you use a ruler foot, if you're not sure of which ruler foot to use, you can call your dealer and find the correct ruler foot. This is a FOF ruler foot because we're using the Creative Sensation. And it has a nice...
Creative Icon.
Oh, it's Creative Icon. Okay, sorry. Creative Icon. And it has a nice thumb screw here, which is so much easier to put on than a regular screw. And I do tighten it, though, quite a bit. Okay. So when you're doing this, the important thing to remember is do not put your presser foot down until your ruler is away from it. So I don't want to put my pressure foot down when I think I'm close, because I can jam it and hurt my foot or the ruler. You want to be able to move everything real smoothly. And we're going to actually use the straight ruler to start. I'm just going to follow along. And what happens is, as you do this, you get really good at knowing where a 1/4 inch is from that edge. So I'm going to put my ruler foot down out here, and I'm going to start along. Oh, it helps if I set it up correctly. Okay. So now, as I put that down, I can feel that it's not dragging, and I'm going to, the needle comes down a 1/4 inch from the edge of the ruler. Okay, and when you start, I always do a little bit of back tacking like this, just a little small stitches, and then you just glide it along. And what you're watching is the edge of the ruler. If you have to stop, you stop, needle down, and you can rearrange the ruler and just keep going. You want to have both hands on the ruler, and my fingers are on the ruler and the fabric. And the hardest part is to remember to breathe. I always want to hold my breath, and that doesn't do you any good. And I'm using a foot control here so that you can, and then for the front to back, again, you're just following right like that. And I'm coming up to the edge, stopping, needle down, putting the ruler in place, and then moving back. Sewing machines do not like to go straight backwards. So when you get to the corner and you're going to go backwards, you can angle it a little bit, because you're the feed dog. So you don't even have to go straight. You just have to follow the ruler. So as I get to the end here, I see that I'm a little short, and so I just rearrange it. So once I get here, this is what I'm talking about. You don't want to go straight back. So what I'm going to do is just angle it a little. You can also see the ruler better if you angle it, and then go straight back. And it's much happier going at an angle than it is going straight back. Okay, so that is the straight ruler. The circle ruler can be used many different ways. You have lines that you can follow. If you have a straight line drawn, where's that ruler? Oh, there it is. Okay. You put the line on the drawn line there. And again, I'm putting the ruler down, moving my fabric over, picking up the bobbin thread that has been cut so it's not very long. And again, the hardest part about this is to just remember to watch the edge of the ruler and not something else. And you don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. You just have to guide it along there. And you can reposition, stop and reposition as often as you need to. And then you can go on this side, and it has the exact same lines on that side. And again, I'm just holding the ruler with both hands, and I get to a place here and I stop and reposition my hands and go again. Because I have the correct ruler for this machine, I can go with the ruler behind the foot like that. If it was the wrong size ruler, it would stop you. Okay, so we're going to move over to the long arm. Here we go. Field trip. So this is the Moxie. It is a 15-inch long arm machine, and it has a frame. Is it 10 feet? Okay, so it's set up probably for 10 here, but it comes as an 8-foot, and you have a 2-foot extension. And because it has the large bobbins, you need a different size bobbin holder. So this is the Jumbo Bobbin Saver 2, and that will hold any of the M-class bobbins. It will also hold the Bernina bobbins that are the large ones, and we have those available in the stores. The other thing that we found is these are the new So Tights Magnum ruler magnets, and you have a leader on this machine that, and on my machine at home I have a Grace, and it tells you to pin your fabric to the leader. You don't have to do that if you use the the magnets. Sorry, rulers and magnets mixed up in my head. The nice thing about this is because this is very narrow, it's thin, and it will go on the bottom, and then this is on the top, so you know exactly where that magnet is, and it doesn't catch. But it will hold your fabric to the leader, and you don't have to do all that pinning, so it saves you a lot of time. Okay, so on a long arm machine, you're going to be doing the same things, but what I've found is because I have arthritis in my hands and wrists, this isn't as difficult to do as it is moving that whole fabric and ruler. So on this, when you're doing it, you are going to, again, you start by bringing the needle up and down to bring the bobbin thread up. Okay, and again, on this one, I'm going to start out with little stitches to start. And then I'm going to come forward. I only have to hold one hand on the ruler and one hand on the handle. And it's more like, it's a natural movement in your hands than the other way. Okay, so I'm going to make this cute little square here again. Whoop, whoop. You don't want to do that. Keep your hand by the needle. Okay, and then again we're going backwards. And you have markings here for an inch, half inch, inch. So you can place it however far away from something you want to do it. And again, you move your hand as you go. There's no rush, just take your time. And then we stop. Okay. We brought in the, this is the ribbon ruler set from Amanda Murphy. It comes again with, I think it's 4 or 5 rulers. This will tell you the finished size. It's 3 inches. And I'm going to place it here.
Are you using a special foot on the long arm?
Is this the ruler foot? It comes with the long arm, yes, but on other machines, my Grace, you do have to use, yes, there is a ruler foot. It's usually a little higher than this, I think. Okay. So when I'm starting this, you don't want to do exactly a 3-inch border with this. You would use a smaller one, because if it's exactly 3 inches and you're off, it's going to show a lot. So I have moved it down a little bit. This is a 4-inch square. And I'm going to place the line up there on that line. And then I just move this. And again, you're watching the ruler as you come around. And again, you can stop it and reposition your hand. And you stop again, and I just move this right here. It's a very easy ruler to use. You'll see that the white line here shows you where you've stitched before, so you know you're on track. And again, I just double check and make sure that that is on the line. And just remember to breathe and watch the ruler. And stop and just move it over. Okay? So it just continues on, and see it ends up being right within that little groove, so you know you're correct, and then you line up, follow that line there. Okay? And for any of the rulers, it is it works the same on the long arm or the domestic machine. And I've put some arrows on this one because when I was using it, I found that that reminded me which line I want to line the circle up with that I had drawn. So it would line up right like that. And I put it on both sides so that I knew exactly where I was going to be using it. Okay. Second drawing. Yes. Lana's got it.
Okay, our second winner for the day wins a pattern called Game Day. And it is for Betty Van Riper. So if you would contact us, we'll get that to you. Now I want to show you what I did from the ruler book. And I'm going to start out with my little sampler here. And for whatever reason, I did it with white thread, so it doesn't show up very well. But I can still tell you what I did. One thing I want you to notice is that, let's get on the right side, when you're doing free motion stitching, and ruler work is free motion stitching, if you tried it today and you were awful and you're going, oh, I really want the free motion stitching, this just isn't working out well, and you just throw it in the garbage and walk away. A year from now, you try it again. Guess what? You're still awful. You have to practice. It takes a lot of practice to get good with free motion stitching, but help is on the way with ruler work. The cool thing about using the rulers is whether you're good with free motion or not, as long as you follow the edge of the ruler, it doesn't matter if you go short, short, long, 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 short, 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 long, long, short, long. It doesn't matter. Your design is going to be perfect. The perfectness of your stitch will come with practice, but your design is going to look good. So people aren't going to see your stitches, they're going to see your design. So practice, practice. What I want you to do is do free motion today. Good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. Do it today. Date it, set it aside. Don't look at it, okay? Practice for a while. Maybe date a couple of them and set it aside. In 6 months or a year, look back at all of your samples and you will see a huge improvement because you practice. Now, when I first started free motion stitching, I was so excited about it that I showed it in So Fun. It was awful when I look back on it, but I was so proud of it because I did it. Now I look at what I do today and it's a huge, huge difference, but that took practice, okay? So practice with your rulers until you get good. Practice your stippling, but definitely practice. So on my sampler here, what I wanted to show you is how much you can do with just a straight edge, okay? I did the piano keys up here. Can you see that good enough? I did the piano keys up here, and then I did the piano keys in the piano keys. And then I did some stippling, some very tiny stippling, and then I did some crosshatch. Then I did some diamond-shaped cross-hatching over here, and then I did a starburst. This starburst is actually in her book. And all of this was done with just a straight edge. And that's other than the stippling, it was all done with just a straight edge. So you can get quite a few designs with only using this ruler. Now, one of the things about practicing is you're going to go through a lot of batting and fabric, okay? But one way to get so you don't waste as much fabric, what I like to do is when I'm done with a piece, you can see here I have another piece of fabric under here. I don't throw that away. I just put another piece over the top and do it again. And then I throw another piece over the top and do it again. Till it's so thick it's not worth doing anymore. Then I throw it away and grab another sandwich. So I maximize the use of my batting over and over and over again. I can see the indent of the stitching on here, but I'm just practicing, so it doesn't really matter. So you can see here the indent of the previous stitching that's on the darker blue fabric, and I'll just throw, when I need to practice again, throw another piece of fabric over the top, and I just keep practicing that way. Okay, so that will save you some time. One thing I wanted to talk about before I move any further into the ruler book, Jenny mentioned the Sew Tight magnets over there. I want to show you another item that you can use these for. I have a couple of 6 needles, and I have the fast frame set. Okay, so this is how I use my fast frame set. This is lanitized again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my stabilizer, and I'm going to a little bit bigger, 1/2 inch bigger than my fast frame. And then I am going to spray it with temporary spray adhesive, and I'm going to stick it to the back of my fast frame. Okay, so now it's stuck on my fast frame. And then I'm going to clip the corners, and I'm going to turn the edges over. Now I sprayed this last night, so we'll see how well it sticks today. Okay, and I'm going to roll those edges over, so now those that spray adhesive is sticking the stabilizer to my fast frame. Then I'm going to take my fabric or my project or whatever it is and use the fast frames and my magnets to hold my fabric in place. Okay, and I'll put it on all the sides. Now, one thing you have to be careful of when you're using these magnets with the fast frames on a multi-needle, if you're, my frame here is pretty wide. If I'm using one of my smaller hoops, if I'm using one of my smaller fast frames, let's say the one that's maybe this big, I won't use the magnets because it's not moving very far and it's so close to the metal throat plate, and these magnets are so strong that throat plate will pull that magnet right over and right off where it is. So I'm always going to use my wider fast frames for that, but then I can get my my projects just right on my fast frames easy with these magnets, and they are fabulous. And I did, for a customer, I did a bunch of hats for her business, and I just flop them on here, threw the magnets on, got it done. It was super, super easy. Really great way to hoop with the fast frames for your multi-needles. Okay, so one of the things she discusses in the ruler book is to combine embroidery and ruler work. And I am all about multimedia. I love to combine everything with anything. Throw some beads on there, throw some paint on there, use the ruler work, throw an embroidery on there, and make a beautiful project. So what I did was I took her design for the Field of Flowers table runner, this design we brought in. Okay, that's one I used on my little table mat that I'll show you here in a minute. And in here is an SVG file to cut out the little flowers, because these flowers are 3D on here. I want to give you a hint on this, on the SVG files. When they come in, they are solid black. Not a big deal, they will cut perfectly. However, transferring them from Canvas, the Canvas workspace on my computer, over Wi-Fi to my Scan and Cut took a long time because of the solid black. Okay, so I want to remove that solid black and just make it lines so it transfers quicker. So if you can see this on here, in my Canvas workspace, I brought the designs in and I took it from a total fill to lines. So you can see over here, it's lines instead of a total fill. That will transfer faster over to my Scan and Cut from my computer. So nothing more than going into the settings and changing it from a solid fill. What that also does is, how many times have you cut with your Scan and Cut and it cut the same design twice? One just a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than the other one, or right on top of it, but it's cutting it twice and you're going, no, there's only one line. Well, you couldn't see that that there was more than one line because it was solid black. Okay, so when you take it down to a line, you can see if it's a double line, what's happening, depending on how the artwork that you brought in, this canvas might be seeing both sides of that line and wanting to cut the inside and outside of the line. So taking it down to a line image, you will immediately see if there's two lines and you can delete one of them. Okay, so on this project right here, for the field of flowers, you can see my field of flowers looks just a little bit different than hers. Okay, so I made mine a little table mat, okay, instead of a full thing. One of the things that I did was I did all my ruler work first. Okay? And depending on how the embroidery is attached, you can decide which way you want to do it. Now, I did all the ruler work first because these are 3D and they're attached afterwards. If they were flat on here and embroidered, I could do the ruler work before I did the embroidery or after I did the embroidery. It would be my choice. If I did it after, I would just ruler work right up to the edge of the design and either backstitch or pull the threads to the back and tie them off. That will never happen in my lifetime. I will backstitch. But in case you're a hand worker and like to do that, you can do that. What I wanted to do with this was use the white on white fabric for my flowers. And she has you put a shimmery organza over the top of it and gives it a really, really unique look with the shimmery organza. But I wanted to paint inside my flowers. So what I did was I did the placement line, placed the fabric, all my flowers were cut out with my scan and cut, and then I painted on the inside, and then I laid the organza on there, and then I had to use a hot knife to burn out the edges. And then I stitched them down. So you can see that little shimmery look. Now, because I used wash away stabilizer in here, I hit that wash away stabilizer with just a little bit of steam, which pulled the flower in just a little bit and crinkled it. You can see that more in the leaves, a little bit of crinkle, because the wash away stabilizer will shrink if it's hit with steam. And that gave me that little crinkle look, which I really, really liked. Now, I'm not a big fan of white bindings. Occasionally they're the right thing to do, but I'm just not, normally I try everything I can do to not do a white binding. Well, I only have two colors here, blue and white, okay? And I didn't want this blue. So what I did was I took the same white on white fabric and I painted it with the same Tsukaneko inks that I did. And I made my binding fabric with the organza on the top and the painted fabric. Now to hook this organza to my fabric, I use Misty Fuse. I'm a Steam 2 kid, but that's kind of a thick stabilizer for this. Misty Fuse is very, very, very thin, and I always keep a supply on hand because there are times when the thinner one is necessary. So I fuse the organza to the fabric after I painted that. Okay, and that gave me this look. So I combined my ruler work and my embroidery with this. My next project I did from that pattern is my pillow here. Okay. Now I wasn't going to paint these flowers, so what I did was I took Misty Fuse and my organza and my cotton and fused them all together and then put it in my scan and cut it out. That all cut out perfectly with no issues whatsoever. And so I had my flowers ready to go. To make my background, I'm going to use the Chenille Cutter. Okay, this is Embellish's new Chenille Cutter. And what I like about this is it comes with, I might not have pulled it out, it comes with 2 feet. Okay, a really long one or a really short one. You decide which one you want to use. I mainly use a short one, but there are times when the long one would be a little bit more efficient. And what I'm going to do to create the chenille is I'm going to have a backing fabric. I'm going to have 2 layers of either Osnaburg or homespun fabric. And the reason why I want Osnaburg or homespun is because they will bloom better. Okay, they're a loose woven fabric and they will bloom better. And then I have 2 layers of cotton. So on my sample here, The first thing I'm going to do is I can either use my ruler work or I can draw my lines, and I'm going to do all my lines 1 inch apart. So you can see here, I've just stitched the 1 inch ones. And then I'm going to come in and stitch in between, so I have all my rows a 1/2 inch. So I've only done the center ones here. Okay. Once I get all my rows in there, I am going to take my cutter and I'm going to make sure that I go right above the base fabric, and then I'll just run my cutter right down here and cut my chenille open. Then I'm going to throw this in the washing machine and I'm going to let it bloom. And you can see how the Osnaburg bloomed just beautifully. Now the pink fabric is 2 layers of cotton that looks variegated, but that's because this was the cotton that I used. Okay, so the Osnaburg bloomed and the cotton gave the beautiful pink variegated look inside the blooming. So that looked really, really good. And this is such a wonderful chenille cutter. I want to show you something else you can use with that. Oh, before I do that, let me show you this. This is what the fabric looked like before the shimmery glitter, and that's what it looks like after. And this is the green that I use, and that's what it looked like after. You can see quite a difference on what it looks like after the shimmery organza is put on there. Another great thing to use this for is, and I'll do this right over here if you don't mind, is when you embroider something and you go to remove the stabilizer, have you ever clipped the fabric or clipped the thread by accident because you got too close to your stitching? Okay, I have. You've never done that? So the chenille cutter becomes your best friend for this, because all you're going to do then is you're going to use the chenille cutter to get all this stuff out of the way so you can see. Go around your design and cut away your stabilizer. And that will work with no-show mesh. It works with tearaway. And what I have found sometimes, if I need to get in close here, I just do it at an angle. Just a slight little angle, and I can get my little cuts out a little closer. So this was really cute. And then I was watching Hope Yoder, who developed this, several months ago, and she was using it to open bags of chips. Okay, so you can use this to open all kinds of stuff. You use your thinker and come up with some really cool ways to use this. But this is the 2 ways I use it: for my chenille or to cut the stabilizer off the back of my designs. And make sure I covered everything. Okay. And now Jenny.
So I did the actual Field of Flowers table runner that she has the instructions for. And before you start this, make sure you read her instructions all the way through, because her construction techniques are a little unusual and not in the normal order that we usually do things in. I only had 2 colors of the organza, and I didn't want to go and buy more. So I had pink and I had white. I did not put any on the leaves. And I didn't rinse all of my wash away stabilizer all the way out, so that they're a little stiff still, which I like. I like them a little stiff. But it's a very pretty table runner. Okay. And I forgot to mention the Zoom Spout oiler. When you have difficult areas to reach, on my Grace machine, I have a oiling spot on the head of it that is about probably an inch down into the base of the machine. This is a wonderful oiler for that, because you can take off this cap. And the nice thing is it has this cap holder there so you don't lose it, which I normally do. And you can bend this and put it down in there and then lift it and pour the oil in. Drip the oil in, not pour it. This is a wonderful quality of oil. You want to make sure that you use a fine machine oil. Whoop, and don't squeeze it when you're putting it down. Oil everywhere. And you don't want anything that's going to be yellowed. All right. I had one of these and my husband stole it because he likes it for in his workshop. And it also works well on squeaky hinges. I've done that too. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay. Should we, let's do another winner.
Okay.
Okay. Nancy Cherish, Cheris, has won Pillow Talk, which is a wonderful book.
I
Look at
love
all
that
those
book.
pillows. Yeah. So congratulations, Nancy. And
I believe the next pattern is linked, right?
yes.
Okay, over here. Our next pattern is going to be linked, and this is by Amanda Murphy. And this pattern just spoke to me because it looks crazy. I mean, there's just circles everywhere. I just love that. I actually went out to try to find this fabric because I love the purples in here. And I could find a couple fabrics. There was no kit. I couldn't find all of them and the searching was starting to be endless. And I thought, no, I can't do this. I have to use something else. So I went into my stash. And funny thing, I bought this fabric of a bunch of Marcia Durst fabric a couple of expos ago. It was beautiful. And I'd been looking for a pattern that uses large blocks to really show off that fabric. Well, it was meant to be because that's what I used to create that. And so here's what I did. I didn't make the whole width wide. I only made 3 strips. And I was able to use the Marcia Durst fabric and use nice big blocks. So what I did, and I'm going to do a demo here in a minute on applique, but what I did was I cut out all my circles on the Scan and Cut, and then I fused them in place, and then I did a grass stitch around each one of them, and then a triple stitch around the grass stitch, okay? So one of the things that she says in her book, move my notes and now I'm lost. One of the things she says in her book is you want to start out with the bones of the quilt, okay? Quilt the bones of the quilt. So in my quilt, the bones of the quilt would be stitching in the ditch here, okay? Stitching in the ditch to get all the layers hooked together. So you start with the bones of the quilt, and then you go to the medium-sized detail. So for me, that would be I did ruler work for the diagonal stripes in here, and everything was done on here with metallic thread, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And then you go to the smaller. I didn't do any smaller in here. I could have, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So you start out with the bones, and then you go to the medium size, and then you go to the smaller size. And a number of years ago, I did a quilt, and if you can see on this quilt, there are a ton of colors on here. Do I use the mint green for my applique? Do I use the olive green for the applique? Or maybe I should use the purple. Oh, maybe I should put a different color. What color do you use? This quilt that I made a number of years ago, and I really wish I could remember the artist's name because it was a fabulous quilt. It was a zebra, black and white, with green leaves and, you know, jungle stuff. And the thing she said in that pattern, and it stuck with me all these years, that's been at least 20 years ago, maybe 15, 18 years ago. When you don't know what color of thread to use on your applique, use light metallic sky blue. It could be a light like I did, or just a light. Use metallic sky blue on your appliques. You'll be surprised how fabulous they look. Now, I've done that a number of times when it was just like, I don't know what color to pick out of there. There are so many beautiful colors, so I used a metallic sky blue. And I also put on 214 light blue crystals on here as well. So lots of detail on here with my ruler work, with my applique, and with my hot fix crystals. So what I want to do is I want to show you how to do the applique. Okay, I have lanitized rules again. Now, applique was my very first love in sewing art. I have been a fan of applique forever. I love embroidery applique with my embroidery machine, and I love sewing applique with my sewing machine. But there are several rules that need to be followed. You do need open toe feet. If you don't have an open toe foot, you cannot see the path you're going on. You have to have an open toe foot so you can see the path. Now, most machine companies will have two sizes, the largest size, the width of their largest zigzag, and a narrower size. Pfaff has the 9mm and the 6mm. I like having them both. I know this is a 9mm machine, but when I am doing smaller detail, like even maybe just a triple stitch or a very narrow zigzag or a very narrow decorative stitch, I like to use the smaller one so that my fabric doesn't tunnel, that the feet are closer to my stitching, okay? So today I'm going to use a wider one because I'm doing a little bit wider stitch. The only thing you have to be careful of with the 6mm is don't go over 6mm, okay? So now I've got my machine set up for a grass stitch zigzag. One of my rules is the home stitch, what Lana Jones calls the home stitch, is where the stitch starts and stops. The grass stitch will start on the left or right, depending on if it's mirror imaged, and it will end on the left or right, okay? A ball stitch will start in the middle. Pretend this is a ball stitch. It will start in the middle, it will do the ball stitch, and it will end in the middle. The home stitch for the ball stitch would be the middle, okay? Wherever the home stitch is, that goes along the edge of your fabric. I've read many people that says, oh, you always put your applique stitches on, half off. That is totally incorrect. It is where your home stitch is. Okay, you just took all your time to cut this out and you're going to do a satin stitch. Why make it bigger unless you're doing a decorative stitch like a ball stitch? Okay, so with the satin stitch, I got it homed on the right. So I'm going to sink my needle in right next to the fabric. Okay, in the base fabric, but next to this fabric. Okay. I have stabilizer in here, and whenever I'm doing any type of a satin stitch, a grass stitch, a ball stitch, anything like that, I want a tearaway stabilizer underneath there because it will form the stitch better. The firmness of the tearaway will form the stitch better. If I'm doing an embroidery and I want to use no-show mesh, well, I have a hoop that tensions that, so I don't have to worry about that. But when I'm doing it this way with my sewing machine, I always have tearaway underneath my satin stitches, okay? So now what I'm going to do is, as I do my satin stitch, the entire stitch is going to be on the applique fabric, not half on, half off, because this home's on the right. So now let me cut that thread and we'll go down to the corner. Now the next thing is when you're turning a corner, whoops. Oh, come on, we got two threads going in two directions here. There we go. Okay, so when you turn a corner or turn a curve, the question comes up is what side do you leave the needle on? Now, what's going to happen is I've read a lot of books that says always leave it on the outside. That will not work in all cases. It will work for this one, but when I'm doing an inside corner or an inside curve, if I leave it on the outside, it's not going to work. Okay, so as I'm coming down to this corner, I'm always going to leave it on the opposite side from which I'm turning. So I'm going to be turning to the left here. I'm going to leave my needle on the right. Right there. And now I'm going to, turn and go down the other side. Okay, so leaving it on the outside worked this time, right? But if I am on the inside corner, let's see which way to go. Let's see, let's go this way. Go back to the beginning of the stitch. So as I'm coming down this corner, okay, so I get to the corner. If I leave it on the outside, I'm going to leave this big gap right here. okay? What I have to do is I have to go past the corner, the width of the stitch, okay? And then I'm going to leave it on the opposite side from which I'm going, and then turn. And now notice I'm going to collect that area up, and I can stitch and have a perfect corner. Okay, so I lift it on the opposite. I left it on the opposite side from which I'm turning. Now on a curve.
Lana, before you go, could you explain what a grass stitch is?
The grass stitch is the stitch.
Weight of terror.
The grass stitch is the stitch I'm doing right here. You can see it's an uneven stitch. You can have a single-sided grass stitch like I'm doing here, or you can have a double-sided grass stitch that goes both, it's grass on both sides. And that would home in the center. Okay, so let me, I don't know why I'm clipping something wrong here. Okay, so let me do the double-sided grass stitch. And that's going to home in the center. So I am going to do this one in the center. So I say it homes in the center, so I'll be doing that one right down the center. Okay. Now the curves are the same thing as far as turning and stuff, but the thing I want to make a mention of is when you're turning a curve, now this big curve on the outside is going to be pretty easy to stitch. Oops, let me get back on this stitch here. Because it's a large curve, okay? I can just pretty much go all the way around here without stopping. But if I go to a smaller curve, now this one isn't quite as small, but there are going to be times when I'm going to be doing a small curve that if it's tinier than this one, I may only be able to go a couple of stitches and then have to stop and turn after just a couple stitches. The smaller the curve are, the less stitches you put on to turn, okay? And so now I can just go around the inside of this one with the grass stitch. The grass stitch is just a zigzag with uneven edges, okay? So that is how I did all of these with metallic thread and the grass stitch, and then just threw on all the hot fix stones. So very, very fun. I think I got all that.
Okay.
So when I did linked, I used it as a demo on how to use the book to quilt a quilt. And what Amanda has you do is she wants you to plan the quilting out once you've got the quilt done. And the easiest way to do that is to draw it out. So she uses a photocopy of the quilt, and I just put it in a sleeve protector, and I drew on it as to what I wanted to quilt. So I tried out just random circles up here, and I didn't like that look. I tried out concentric circles, and I thought, no, that's too much quilting. You have to have the same amount of quilting throughout the whole quilt. So one of her things that she says is don't start real dense and small, and then gradually start getting bigger stitches and bigger placement and space between, because it's going to pucker and make your quilt not look well. So not look good. Yeah, it's thick. So I decided to go around the circles on the outside and then on the inside, and then every once in a while where there was a large space, throw in another circle. So I wrote down here, the same as Lana told you, you start with stitching in the ditch around each of these. I stitched in the ditch, And before that, I had it pin basted because I needed to baste it first. And then I stitched in the ditch around them all. And then I decided to start my circles. So you can see there's one on the inside here and on the outside there. If you come here and you can always go along where you stitch in the ditch again and go to the next space to stitch. Okay. And then I was going to do ribbon candy borders. However, that would be much denser stitching than what all of this was. So instead, I used that circle ruler and made ribbon. I'm not sure if you can see this. Should I take it down?
No, you can see it.
Okay. So what you do is you draw, you can still see my line here that I drew. And I took that circle ruler and laid it along, let's see. So I took that circle ruler and laid it along that line that I had the arrow on and stitched here and then moved it and stitched there. And then I moved it about 3/4 of an inch apart and then did it again. Okay, so that way all of the quilting is kind of symmetrical and not dense in one area and not dense in the other. So this fabric was a fat quarter pack, and it's called Night Hike by, let's see, if I can find her name, Robin Givens. So again, just like Lena, I didn't want to cut up all of this fun fabric. This one has maps on it, and I wanted it to stay more complete. So it made it kind of fun to cut up all the different, and I wasn't sure how it was going to look until you get it done. All right. Now, I did not use a scan and cut. I cut all my circles by hand, okay? I have wonderful Kai scissors that I use, and we were talking about how nice the pattern is because it has the circles nested inside each other, so you can just copy that off and cut. There it is.
I knew I had it somewhere.
So out of the same fabric, you are getting 4 different circles, okay? And so you just cut around, and it works like a charm. Okay, it's a very easy pattern, and I just did stitching. I did blanket stitch around here, and I also have Amanda's lollipop rulers, and so this is the lollipop ruler here, and so it goes straight, and then it goes a little circle and down, and a straight little circle. Okay, which is another fun ruler set. Okay. And I did have to come to Quality Sewing and Vacuum and get fabric for the border and the sashing because I had nothing to go with this fabric. So it's nice that we have fabric now. And let's see. So now we're doing
The quilting organizer.
quilting organizer.
Ruler organizer.
Oh, the ruling organizer. Thank you. Amanda has a wonderful pattern for the, it's a hanging ruler organizer. And it is to be hung on she has a hanger on there. I have a pegboard at my house that I hang my rulers on. And so what I did is I measured between the pegboards and put grommets in there 10 inches apart so that I could hang the ruler when I wanted to use it, hang the ruler hanger on that. I got this fabric from Quality Sewing and Vacuum. It's Crescendo by Amanda Murphy. And what's fun, you can't really see through the vinyl here, but the white is actually shimmery. I don't know if you can see that. But it does have some shimmer in there. And she only calls for 1 zipper pull on the whole thing, and I decided to do 2 on each of them because then you can go from either side and you don't have to go all the way across. And you can divide it up however many ways you want. I did do down the center of all of those. It also folds up because she has you stitch these long channels here, and as it gets higher, you can see the channels on the back. So that allows it, the fabric and the sew stable to bend. Okay. And
Okay, so I did mine, it's the same way. I actually followed directions, something I can do occasionally. But as I was digging for my zippers, I knew I had a whole bunch of by the yard zippers. Could not find them. I searched and searched and searched. But in my searching, I found this. This is from my mom's stuff. It is an 8-inch navy zipper, and look at the price. 25 cents. Pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. I'll just cherish that. Okay, so on mine, what I did was I went to Joann's to get my vinyl. I didn't have enough for this project. And as I was searching for vinyl, I found pink vinyl and yellow vinyl and the clear vinyl. So I decided to do pink vinyl. So you can see here that I did my pink vinyl, and you can see the difference between the binding fabric and the fabric that's behind here. And I used black zippers, and just like Jenny, I did 2 zipper pulls because again, going across the whole thing was, it's kind of silly when you can put in 2 zipper pulls. I also put small pockets down here for things like your echoes and your little gauges, the little measuring 1/4-inch gauge, and your some of your other very small little pieces that you can get. I can have a little pockets in here to put in there. And then I did the ribbon ruler across the top. And if I haven't said it before, that ribbon ruler is amazing. It's so easy to use. So if you are tired of just a straight line, go to the ribbon ruler. It is super easy. And then I put a seam here and a seam here because I do have some rulers that are very long, so I left this one long for those particular serpentine rulers and stuff like that. So very easy to put together. I thought it went together like the instructions were excellent.
So somebody's asking, what gauge vinyl do you use? And also, how do you do 2 zipper pulls?
Okay, say that one more time.
So what gauge vinyl do you use?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you do 2 zipper pulls?
Okay. First of all, this is what was at Joann's. I don't know what weight it was. Honestly, I wish I could tell you. It's just what was at Joann's. It's not the, I've had stuff that was thinner. Honestly, I don't think it matters if you use this weight or a little heavier. Is yours?
mine heavier?
Yeah. Jenny's is just slightly heavier than mine, but honestly, I apologize. I don't know. But it's just what they had at the store, and it just felt good. I mean, that's really how I picked it. Oh, this feels nice. Okay, let's take it. And it's pink. And what was the other question?
2 zipper pulls.
Oh, 2 zipper pulls. What you're going to do is, if you see here, you take this down. You can see the heads of the zippers are towards each other. So when I put them on, I'm going to put one on from this side and one on from this side with the heads facing each other. And then they're going to go on perfectly. So I wound up having to order mine. So I got new zipper pulls and everything. And wouldn't you know it, the minute that doorbell rang and I found it, I was going to go put it away. There was my big roll of zippers I already had. But oh well, so now I got plenty of zippers. So you just put them on from either side. And the way I like to do that is I'm going to take the end of my zipper and I'm going to cut it in a wedge so that the teeth come together, and then I just slip that zipper pull right on there and it goes on super easy. Okay, so not a difficult process, and I believe there's some YouTubes out there that will show you. The Zipper Lady has some fabulous YouTubes out there to show you how to do some stuff. Okay. And the last thing we have for you today is the Boneyard Buddies. I just think that this is the cutest little thing. Jenny found this and I went, oh, I just love this. It is so cute. So what I did, and I'm going to talk a little bit about embroidery software. Okay, I know a lot of you guys have embroidery software. Some of you use it, some of you just buy it. That's all you do. You buy it with each machine and it goes in the drawer and you never use it. So you have thousands of dollars sitting in your drawer that's never been used. The one thing about embroidery software is you don't have to digitize to where you have this type of digitizing with that software, but you need to learn the basics so that you know enough on how to use it to get where you want to get to. Okay. Just as an aside, I have virtual embroidery classes, embroidery software classes starting at the end of this month. They're already posted online. I'm doing Floriani Total Control U. I'm doing Premiere 2, PE Design 11, and Embellish Maker. There's 4 different softwares. We're going to start out very basic. So if you're going, oh, I haven't used my software in a long time, I kind of remember things, I really need a refresher course, this is for you. If you're going, I have never even touched my software, this is for you. It's going to be very basic. I'm going to step you through the first couple classes will be very basic to get you back going again or get you started. And then we'll start hitting it. I like to teach digitizing. That's mainly what I teach, but I will show you other things about the software. And you'll find that it's really fun to use your software for just what you need. So for instance, on this Boneyard Buddy, you can see it is a square quilt. Okay, or rectangle. I decided I wanted it round. So I went into my embroidery software. Now I have quilting software, but I know my embroidery software really well, so I used that instead. And now these are shrunk down pictures, so pretend they're big. What I do is I bring in my designs into my software. Okay, I'm going to start over here. I bring my design into my software. I put all the pieces together that I want in my design. Okay. Now I knew it had to be a triangle, so now I made a triangle. This triangle is just done with just a plain running stitch. Okay. That's going to tell me my pattern. Okay. So I create this triangle out of a running stitch, and now I add a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That outside edge I will save as an SVG file and print that out. That's my pattern. That's the exact pattern I used to create my round mat here. Okay. Now I'm going to bring those all together and bring in all the little creatures and put the triangles around them to make sure they all fit together perfectly, and they did. Okay. Once I get that done, now I'm going to embroider each one of these. Okay. I'm just going to take my pattern and draw it on the fabric so I know where to place it. I don't have to be perfect because I'll cut it out later, but it just gives me an idea where to put it. And I'll embroider each one of these. Okay. So it comes out to a big triangle. Then I'm going to sew them all together because I left a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew them all together to create my table mat here. And then I'm going to take my big thing that, you got the pointy thing on one end and the pencil on the other, and you put it on a yardstick and you create a circle. I'm going to take that and make my circle and cut the edges off. Okay. To do the center, this is nothing more than a circle that I told to be a spiral and put the grass stitch around the edge. You don't need to know a ton about digitizing. You just need to know your software in order to get to where you want to get. You'll never take your embroidery to the next level without software. Okay. So now when I went to do the binding, I had 12-inch strip left. Okay. So I went and looked up continuous bias to see how many yards or inches I could get out of that 12-inch by 20-inch strip. Well, the 12 by 12 block didn't give me enough. And I didn't have enough for 2 12 by 12s, which would be enough. I was sitting there going, I know this will make it, but I don't have enough fabric to do squares. So I went online and I searched for doing, here it is. I searched for doing the continuous bias with a rectangle. And quite honestly, I thought the rectangle was a whole lot easier than the square. And I found a website that told you how to do it in the square. Now they're doing a really large piece of fabric, but their instructions were so good, I was able to do it on my 12 by 20-inch piece. And now, if I did 12-inch and then a smaller piece, I'd have so many seams, it just would be ridiculous. So the rectangle was the way to go. And I don't know if you want to look at this and see that's on here, this is the website I use. We can post it later. It's purfylle.com. And they had great instructions for how to do the continuous bias with a rectangle. Okay. Okay. So I think that's all I did with this. So embroidery software you can use to create your quilt blocks, and then just save them at SVG and then print them out. And that's exactly what I did here. Okay. And so now Jenny has hers.
Okay. The thread that we use for glow in the dark is by Wonderfill. It's called Aurora. And it has 200 yards on here. It is 40 weight. I used a size 80/12 top stitch needle when I stitched this out. I had some older glow in the dark thread, and it was like rope. It was so thick and it did not work well. So this is really an improvement over the old stuff. Okay, so I embroidered this out. You do need, if you're going to do the large quilt, you do need a 9.5 by 14 inch hoop. So I have a brother, and that worked. I had stashed away probably a yard of glow in the dark fabric by Fairy Frost. So I used the glow in the dark fabric, and the pattern does not call for that. So when you're embroidering, I embroidered around all of the applique with the glow in the dark thread. It doesn't tell you to do that. It tells you to do it only in the bottom part here. So if you're going to do the glow in the dark thread around all of your applique, you're going to need a lot more thread than you anticipate. So I think I went through 4 spools of the thread. Okay, and that was making this little pillow, and she gives you instructions on how to do that. If you have a scan and cut and you cut it, you have a large enough field to cut a hole. So if you cut this whole shark out, you could use a rectangle of fabric, cut out the shark, and use it would be reverse applique. It would be the opposite. And she shows that on the picture too. So if you're lucky enough to have a large enough screen. Okay. I did use the ribbon ruler on this for the borders. I don't use wall hangings much, and I made this for my daughter and her children for Halloween, so I made it a lap quilt. So I did add on the red border and then the outer black border. Okay, and then let's see what else about that. Yeah, are you ready?
Yes.
We want to show you how this glows, because it's much more fun in the dark than it is. And on the backing, I do have glow in the dark dancing skeletons for my grandsons. Okay. Oh, is that fun?
Now mine is all glow in the dark thread, the Wonderfill glow in the dark thread. Isn't that just fun?
And so there you can see the Fairy Frost, some of the glow in the dark. And then this guy is and then I did do a label that glows in the dark.
Oh, cool.
Oops.
It's fun.
Okay.
So, from the dungeon of quality sewing, We want to thank you for coming today and visiting us virtually. And
We look forward to seeing you in
Thank you.
person again soon.
that's what I was trying to get out. So thank you so much. You have a fabulous day.